Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Sorry it's been a little while since my last movie review. I will explain. Basically, I've had a pretty busy life lately. Obviously, the podcast is my main priority, and it's been a real busy time with the podcast. What we tend to do is get a bunch of episodes together and then put them out, and then get a bunch more together and put them out. You know, we do it in fits and starts, so it's been a busy time with that. And I have quite a lot of work to do with the podcast. Obviously, I've got to, if I'm not familiar with an album, I've got to get familiar with it. I've got to write notes for it. I've got to record the episode. I've got to edit the episode. I do the editing. I mean, that takes up a lot of my time. And as I say, the podcast is my absolute focus. That's my main area where my creative outlet goes, because we do one a week. We put out one a week. It's not an irregular thing like this is. You know, this is what I do when I've got time to do it. Obviously, you know, this is quite a time consuming thing as well. I mean, you take the time spent watching the movies, 20 minutes, half an hour to shoot the actual video, a little bit more time to edit it. It's quite a big workload. And on top of that, obviously, I mean, the football's been on, so I've been watching that mainly during my sort of free time, on top of the other stuff that I do. Plus, normal life is ongoing. But the good news for you guys, not necessarily for me, is that England have gone out of the European Championships now, so I've got a little bit more time on my hands to do this sort of thing, and I am going to be reviewing Quentin Tarantino's 1997 film Jackie Brown. The film was, of course, written and directed by Quentin Tarantino. It stars an ensemble cast that includes, amongst others, Pam Grier, Samuel L. Jackson, Bridget Fonda, Robert De Niro, Michael Keaton, a ton of actors. I won't list them all here. The plot essentially follows Grier's character, Jackie Brown, the title character. She plays an airline stewardess for a Mexican airline who earns a very bad wage because she's got a criminal past, so the best job she can get is for like the worst airline in the Americas. She essentially supplements her income by running money for a gun salesman called Ordell Roby, played by Jackson. When an informant tips the police off that she is coming into the country with a large amount of money, she gets caught with cocaine in her bag, which she didn't know was there. When she gets bailed by Roby, he at first thinks he's going to kill her, but they end up making a deal that she'll do one last job for him, transporting a large amount of money, and then all will be well. At the same time, the police have hooked her up. They're going to use her as an informant, so she's essentially pulled between the two sides, but she formulates a plan to basically steal most of the money for herself and to do a runner. So, Quentin Tarantino. This is the first Tarantino movie I've done a proper review on. I do quite like Quentin Tarantino, but he's not... I don't think of him as the master filmmaker that a lot of people do. I think of him as a very, very talented filmmaker who's never quite hit his full potential. He's one of those filmmakers that by now he should have made the greatest movie ever made, and he just hasn't. I think he's a filmmaker that works best with minimal budget, and when he makes shorter movies, frankly, when he gets to the point where he goes on just too long. This is one of those examples where it just went off the deep end, and he really should have just reeled it in a little bit and just tried a little bit harder to kind of compact the story down. This movie takes about 40 minutes to get into the actual story. I think it's like half an hour. You see Pam Grier as Jackie Brown right at the very start, and then after that it's half an hour till you see again. It's all stuff of Sam Jackson's character Ordell. Tarantino has a pretty unique ability of making his films overstuffed and flabby all at once. Like I say, with Reservoir Dogs it was fine. That's a 100-minute film, I think. I don't think it's even 100 minutes, and that's great. Pulp Fiction managed to get around that by being episodic, and that's a great film, probably my second favourite Tarantino movie. The cleverest thing he ever did was split Kill Bill in half, frankly, and pretty much every other movie he's ever done except Death Proof, which was in general pretty weak. Every other movie he's ever done has just been too long. That being said, I've got to say, man, it's got his usual visual flair. Tarantino is a real auteur of a director. He's got his own visual style, which admittedly is a very derivative style. I mean, but he's kind of fostered a style and built a style out of kind of taking inspiration from lots and lots of people. You know, it's not like he rips off one person. He's clearly got a passion for filmmaking. I don't think anyone can deny that. And I mean, you look at a film like Jackie Brown and the influence is quite clear. I mean, this is basically a blaxploitation movie, which there's nothing wrong with, and it does it well. It is definitely a good blaxploitation movie, or rather, it's a homage to blaxploitation movies rather than a blaxploitation movie itself. It's got to be said as well that, I mean, the script has got the usual Tarantino swagger, if you will. It's full of his usual sort of rhetoric and all of that sort of thing, which some see as a problem, but I really think he writes good dialogue, and it's acted well as well. I mean, obviously half the battle is you know, the performance. I think the performers do a really great job. Tarantino has directed them really well in how they perform, and you know, credit where it's due. Everyone delivers. There is no weak link in this larger ensemble cast. As I say, I've got to come back to it, man. The story of Jackie Brown is really, really good. You know, if there's one thing Tarantino does well, it's jeopardy, it's treachery, it's double crossing. In this movie, actually, I've got to say, has the least of the sort of aesthetic, I don't know how, aestheticized, making violence look good. It's got the least of that of any of Tarantino's movie. It's got less of that than Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction. It's got less kind of violent set pieces, gory set pieces. It's aestheticization. I think that's the word. Aestheticization of violence. There's less of that in this movie than in pretty much any other Tarantino movie, to be honest. I'm a gorehound, so I've got no problem with that. But generally speaking, man, I've got to say the script is so strong. It's a very compelling story, although it kind of gets stunted in places by the fact that it is quite kind of flabby. Jackie Brown is a really, really enjoyable film. It's definitely on the better side of Tarantino's work. I mean, for the most part, his career's been pretty consistently good. If not great, his films are usually good. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Why not comment in the description what you think of Jackie Brown and what your favourite Tarantino movie is. Other than that, please do subscribe, like, leave whatever comment, even if it's an abusive one. I won't read them anyway, so it's okay. I'm going to leave, as always, a link to my podcast in the description, which I would love you to click and check out. As I said at the start, that's where all of my focus goes in terms of creating content. Thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen.